Hi guys, something happened. Something that makes me want to say a word that would mean that I would have to make this episode explicit.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world.
Well, apart from the visit at the small lion park yesterday, which was very interesting, I got some great pictures. You can see them on the radiovagabond.com. I didn't drive that far, and I arrived quite early in the afternoon, I think 2 or 3 o'clock. And then I spent the day at the Airbnb. There was a kitchen, so I was able to do some cooking. I'm all right.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Just recording something for my... No, that's okay. You're a guest on my podcast. Well, I stopped the car just outside on a road, and a woman came up and said, Are you okay? Apparently it's not normal to stop here, but it's 300 kilometers drive today. I'm going first down to Durban, or close to Durban, back to Durban, and then driving along the coast northeast to a city called St Lucia. There I'm going to be staying for 2 nights at a backpacker's place, and that's because tomorrow I hope to go to a hippo park that's in that area. So a lot of driving today, and then I'll talk to you later when I get to St Lucia. My name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond podcast, day number 9 of my South African road trip.
Do you remember in the latest episode that I was struggling to pronounce the name of the city I was staying in? But thank God I have the best listeners in the world, and one of them is a woman named Anne. She asked one of her local friends, Lebo, to send her a voice message that she forwarded to me.
You said Pietermaritzburg. Pietermaritzburg.
There you go. Pietermaritzburg. Thank you so much to both Anne and Lebu for this. If you also want to send me a voice message, my WhatsApp number is +45 40 105 105. And now I feel sorry for not exploring Pietermaritzburg more. For me, it was just a place to stay for the night. But after my failed attempt to go to Lesotho, listen to the latest episode if you haven't already done that. Now I know that I will be going back to do a second attempt, and then I might do some more recordings from this area. This is day 9 of my 20-day road trip towards Johannesburg, where I'm headed to catch a flight north, which also means that this is the last leg of my African adventures. And even though I'm only halfway there, this episode is the season finale. Let me tell you why a bit later in this episode. And then I'll also tell you what's going to happen next on the Radio Vagabond. My name is Palle Bo, and welcome to episode 167. Right now, we're heading to St Lucia here in South Africa.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
This village, St Lucia, lies within a unique World Heritage Site that contains 5 ecosystems. I'm sitting here with a brochure, and it says animals roam the streets and hippos, crocodiles and sharks live here. Actually, the hippos also roam the streets, so if you bump into something big and fat late at night, don't insult it. It might just bite your head off. It's true. This is what it says here in this brochure. And I've seen signs saying hippos can be found on the streets. It's an area with more than 800 hippos. So it's a quite unique area. I believe this is the highest number in any place here in Africa. And I'm staying at a place called Monsi Safari Backpackers. It's a wonderful place. A lot of tents set up on wooden platforms. It's got 2 swimming pools and lounge areas and The whole thing is very, very nice. So I think I'll sit by the pool and try to do some editing on my podcasts. Tomorrow I'm going on a hippo and croc cruise, and I'm so looking forward to that.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels and guest houses and hostels around the world. Hotels25.com.
It's day 10 of my South African road trip, and today I'm staying here in St Lucia. And in a minute I'm going on a hippo croc tour on the river.
The Hippo and Croc Boat Cruises takes place in iSimangaliso Wetland Park, just outside St Lucia. And I was picked up at the hostel and got into an open minibus with some of the other guests and our guide, Nidu.
What was your name?
Mdu.
Mdu?
Yes, that's MDU.
Okay, Mdu. What can we expect to see today?
Actually, you're going to see hippos every day. You're going to see the hippos. But for the crocodiles, maybe sometimes, because it depends on the weather. So when it's warm, you might see them. But when it's colder...
So what is it today? Is it warm or cold today?
I'm not sure for the crocs. But hippos, don't worry. You're going to see them.
And I see signs that hippos might be walking the streets at night here.
Yes, they do.
And it's the animal that is responsible for most killed human beings.
Yes, hippos are one of the dangerous animals. But here in St Lucia, they used to see people. So,
Okay.
And they're nocturnal animal. So when it's afternoon or maybe when it's dark, it's where they're active.
So it's not common that the hippos here in the street they kill people.
No, they're not gonna do that.
No.
Unless if maybe you're gonna push them close, maybe on a corner. So you need to keep them distance.
If I met a hippo, I would not provoke it.
No.
Might just bite my head off.
It's a 2-hour boat trip where they make a promise. 100% guaranteed hippo sightings, or you're getting your money back. And I guess that's a promise that isn't that hard to keep, as St Lucia is the home to the largest free-roaming population of hippos in South Africa. Not only is it home to 800 hippos, but also approximately 1,000 Nile crocodiles, not to mention the abundance of bird life here in the Wetland Park.
But when you go further north to the border of Mozambique, the ecosystems are close to 8. But as I promised you this morning, I'm going to point to the 5 ecosystems, but we're going to focus on the Lake St Lucia, so that's a 4th ecosystem. Okay. So the first
The
one
hippos are a weird animal. Here are some interesting facts about hippos that you might not know. The name hippopotamus comes from the ancient Greek and means river horse. Hippos bask on the shorelines and secrete an oily red substance, which gave rise to the myth that they sweat blood. But the liquid is actually a skin moistener and sunblock. An adult hippo in the river needs to resurface every 3 to 5 minutes to breathe. This process of surfacing and breathing is automatic, and even when a hippo is sleeping underwater, it will rise and breathe without waking. And speaking of doing things in the river, both reproduction and birth occur in the water. Hippo calves weigh approximately 45 kilos at birth and can suckle underwater by closing their ears and nostrils. Each female has only one calf every 2 years. Despite its stocky shape and short legs, it can easily outrun most humans. Maybe Usain Bolt has a chance. Hippos have been clocked around 30 kilometers per hour over short distances. Hippos will travel on land for up to 10 kilometers to feed and spend 4 to 5 hours grassing, and can consume 68 kilos of grass each night. It might sound like a bit, but considering its enormous size, their food intake is relatively low. And then, what we already talked about, the hippos are one of the most aggressive creatures in the world and is often regarded as one of the most, if not the most dangerous animal in Africa. But if they feel threatened on land, they will most often run for water.
We're 12 people on board this flat bottom boat that's sailing on the river, and the water is anything but clear. It's quite muddy, like it would be in a river, and the river is around, let's say, 50 meters, 60 meters wide, and in each side there are high grass and vegetation, and that's where we would find the hippos. The water level is quite high today, so we are not expecting to see any crocodiles, unfortunately. There are quite a few crocodiles here, and sharks actually, but it's only the hippos that we got to see today, and a few buffaloes that were on the shore. We've been out here for almost 2 hours now, and we are heading back to shore. This has been quite exciting.
So we saw a lot of hippos and didn't get to see any crocodiles. Well, that's what I said in this recording, that I thought would be the last from this trip. But then something happened.
And just as the trip is about to finish, we did see a giant crocodile. It was right on the banks, and when we got close to it, it jumped down into the water. But we did get to see a crocodile. What a great trip.
This 20-second clip that you just heard is nothing out of the ordinary, and yet it's very unique. You see, this was the last recording from day 10, and even though I had 10 more days on my road trip, it also turned out to be the very last field recording I had from my Africa adventures. I'll tell you why and what happened in just a few seconds. Also, I'll let you in on what happened after St Lucia, and then what's going to happen later here in the podcast. But now, another letter from a listener. A few weeks ago, I got a letter from a woman called Andrea, and this one is from a different Andrea. She's actually South African. Hi, Pellebo. Thank you for a fabulous show. You're a talented storyteller. I look forward to every episode. I'm a South African nomad waiting out the COVID on the garden route close to Tsitsikamma. I've so enjoyed your South African road trip, driving up and down the N2 listening in. If you get a chance, definitely go back to explore Lesotho. It's magical. Would love to grab a beer with you sometime if you're ever back in this neck of the woods and the alcohol is back on sale. Take care, stay safe. Best wishes, Andrea. Thank you so much, Andrea. I'm so glad you're enjoying the podcast. And since you are a nomad, we might bump into each other somewhere in the world at some point. If not, I'm most likely coming back on Garden Route and Tsitsikamma. It's one of the most beautiful places on this planet, and I would love to spend more time in that area. Even though that also means I'll be close to Blåkran's Bridge, and I'll have to do the bungee jump since I made a promise of doing that in episode 161. Andrea sent this by filling out the form on theradiovagabond.com/contact. And you could do the same. I always enjoy getting letters from listeners. It means the world to me hearing from some of you guys. You can also do the old-fashioned way of sending me an email on listener@theradiovagabond.com, or do like Anne did, send me a voicemail on WhatsApp, though we didn't get to hear Anne, only her friend's voice. My WhatsApp number again, +45 40 105 105. Now, back to the show.
This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast.
And the rest of the show is going to be different. As I was continuing the second half of my road trip, I was still recording a ton every day. But then, when I came to Johannesburg 10 days later, something awful happened. Well, here I am, in my Airbnb, explaining what.
Hi guys, something happened. Something that makes me want to say a word that would mean that I would have to make this episode explicit. And I don't want to do that, but it's a 4-letter word that starts with an F. As I travel around, I always carry a recorder, like the one I'm speaking into now. It's a Zoom recorder, and I record so much. Normally for a 30-minute episode, I might have 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of recordings that I need to go through before I decide what to put in each episode. And that requires a lot of space. It's quite a few megabytes of recordings. And what happened was, and bear with me for a minute or so while I explain this. This is the technical side, but I need to tell you exactly what happened, because normally I'm not careless with my recordings. It means so much to me. The last 10 days I've been recording a lot every single day. I've been recording in all the places I went to, and what happens is that they're on the SD card on my Zoom recorder, and then I transfer these files to my MacBook. And because and then normally what I do is I upload that to Dropbox in folders with timestamps, so I can find everything and it's in perfect order. I'm pretty organized that way. But what happened is that on this part of the journey, I haven't had the best Wi-Fi in the world. So I didn't have time to synchronize everything to Dropbox. And then as I was getting to Johannesburg, my MacBook started saying, "You don't have more space on your hard drive. Delete some files." And then I thought, well, I have this external hard drive. So I took the last 10 days of recordings and moved all those folders to my external hard drive, or copied them onto my external hard drive, and then deleted them from the computer. As I was doing that, I was getting ready to go to Soweto, so I was away from the computer for just a little bit, and then I came back and said, oh, where was I? Oh, yeah, I copied the files, then I better delete them. And I deleted the files, and then I emptied the trash bin as well, because as long as they're in the trash bin on a Mac, they still take up space. So I deleted the files there, so I was sure that they were all gone. Do you see where I'm getting at? I said that I deleted the files, and then I came back, and then I deleted the files. Yeah, I did it twice. So the first time, I deleted them on the computer, and the next time, I just saw the folders on my screen, and then I deleted them again, but what I was looking at was the folders on the external hard drive. So I deleted them twice, and then emptied the trash bin, so they were completely gone. I tried to recover them. There's some kind of recovery software, but nothing worked. I tried 3 different versions, and nothing worked. They were gone, and I'm horrified about that. Oh, yeah, it's hard for me to get over. Because I recorded so much, and let me tell you a bit about what happened after St Lucia, the hippo city. From there, I went to Swaziland. Well, actually, it was renamed just shortly after my visit to the Kingdom of Eswatini. So, not Swaziland anymore, but it was Swaziland when I was there. I stayed at an amazing place in the middle of a national park in Swaziland. Eswatini. It's called
Sonzela Backpackers, and it's in Lilvani Wildlife Sanctuary, and it's in the middle of a national park. And in the late afternoon, I went on a game drive with one of the other guests, and we ended up at the top of a hill looking at the wildlife, seeing the animals, and watching the sun go down with a glass of wine, and it was beautiful. And then we went back to the backpackers' place where they were preparing dinner for us over a fire, and we were around the campfire all night chatting away, and it was a beautiful experience and a wonderful place to stay. It's called Sonzela Backpackers, and wonderful. From there I went a bit north to Nielsbrut, and it was more or less just a stop on the way. After Nielsbrut I went to Port, where I stayed at a guest house for 2 nights. It's on the border of Mozambique, and I wanted to go in and experience in Mozambique, and spent a day in the capital, Maputo. I wasn't able to drive into Mozambique, so I had to drive to the border, put my car there, and then walk across the border to get a local shared minibus into the capital. In Maputo, I just spent the day walking around, having coffee, having lunch, walking in and out of shops and into the different areas. Going back, I was getting onto one of those minibuses again, and even though it's not that big, it's not much wider than a regular car, they are putting 4 people on each row of this minibus. And in front of me, there were 3 African women, and they were not the smallest women, especially around the hips. I don't think I offend them by saying that, because they were talking about that themselves. They were 3 women, very, very tight in one row. And then the driver came and said, "Oh, we need to put one more in that row." And they were squeezing back and forth and said, "Come on, it's not possible, it's not possible." You could not fit even the smallest kid in between those. They were really crammed in there. The guy started playing Tetris with the people, so he moved one of them one row in front and one row in back, and then managed to just size people up, and he managed to get 4 people on each row, and I thought that was really impressive. So I got to see a human Tetris game in a minibus in Mozambique. And then the next day, my Kruger National Park experience started, and this was something I'd really been looking forward to for a long time. Kruger National Park is a South African national park and one of the largest game reserves in the whole of Africa. It covers an area of almost 20,000 square kilometers, 7,500 square miles, or nearly 2 million hectares of land. From north to south, it's 360 kilometers, 220 miles along the Mozambique border. And then it's 65 kilometers, 40 miles from east to west. This park is larger than Israel. It's an almost indescribable wildlife experience. You can get on guided tours and drive around, or you can just go in there in your own car all over, and you can drive around for days without having been everywhere. I tried to look into how many animals of each of the different species there are, and the only numbers I could find are from 2011, so it might be a little bit different. But let me give you a few of them. More than 13,000 elephants, around 10,000 giraffes, 3,000 hippos, 1,750 impalas, more than 4,000 crocodiles, 17,000 lions. They also have rhinos, but I don't know exactly how many. Not that many, and this is one of the numbers that I'm pretty sure is different from the 2011 number. I didn't see any rhinos, but I saw the other big 5. One of the things that I really enjoyed watching was the elephants, because
At some point I stopped at a rest stop, and I could see down below there was a river, and there were like hundreds of elephants swimming in the river. And behind the river there was the forest and the jungle. And at some point the big alpha male made out a big elephant trumping sound, and all the elephant responded to that signal and got out of the water, and then they all walked into the woods behind them. Really amazing. Really, really amazing. Another experience with the elephants was as I was driving along the road, there was a group of elephants walking across the street. So obviously I stopped the car, and behind me some other cars, but I was in the front of this, and these 15 to 20 elephants were walking across the road right in front of me. And at the very end, the biggest elephant I've ever seen up close in real life, big male elephant, came, and then it stopped right in front of me, and he turned his head and looked at me right in the eyes, to put out the ears so it would be even bigger, and it just looked at me as if he was telling me, "You stay right there, because here comes the baby." And then he walked on, and a smaller female elephant came, and the most adorable little baby elephant that could hardly walk. It was, I don't think it was more than a few days old. Thankfully, I have the photos of this, and I put them on the radiovagabond.com. You got to go and see that. All in all, this was really, really an amazing experience to drive around in Kruger National Park. Actually, I did it for 2 days. The first day I came in from the south. They have many entrances into the park, and then I went out of the park. You can spend the night in the park. I didn't do that. It's very expensive to do that, so I found a place just outside the park in a town called Palaborva. And then the next morning I drove back into the park, because it's something you can try to do it in one day, but you can go on totally different places if the second day, and not go anywhere near where you've been the day before. It's so big. So highly recommended, and do that. Whether you drive on your own or you get on one of these guided tours, and if you have the extra money for it, spend the night in there in one of the camps. From there I went down to Pretoria, the city just north of Johannesburg, and I stayed with a Danish safari guy called Holger Jensen. He's got something called Jensen Safari, and also has a guest house where he let me stay a couple of nights. And that was interesting to see a fellow countryman build a life here in South Africa. And then after that, I went to Johannesburg, where I discovered that I lost the files, and I've spent most of the day in Soweto. You know, the township that in earlier times was not a safe place to be, but now it's just a part of Johannesburg, and a perfectly safe place with shops and restaurants, and then also the Nelson Mandela House, or Mandela's house is what it's called. It is the house that Nelson Mandela lived in from 46 to 62, and now it's a museum, and it was really interesting to see a house where Mandela stayed when he was a young man, and it's in Orlando West in Soweto. So I walked around that area most of the time. I feel almost guilty that I haven't spent more time in Johannesburg, because I can't really say that I can tell you so much more about the city, and since I've given Cape Town so much attention, I feel it's unfair that I've only spent 1 day in Johannesburg. So this is another one of these times where I say I need to go back to Johannesburg and spend some more time here.
So,
That's it for Africa for this time, but I'm coming back. I've only been to 13 African nations so far. And no, I'm not counting Lesotho. I didn't go there, remember? There are 53 African UN nations, so I've only done 25% of them. So, oh yes, I will be back. I'll also promise you that I'll be extra careful not to lose any recordings ever again. But since I am out of recordings, this also concludes Season 4 of the Radio Vagabond. In the next few weeks, while I work on episodes for the next season, you'll get some flashback episodes. Like I did before this season, I've handpicked some of the older episodes from the archive, some episodes that you might never have heard. I'm also going to be dropping a few other bonus episodes. And then I'm doing something crazy. Something that's never been done before. And that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But it's insane. You just need to stay subscribed, and all this will be in your podcast app. I am also looking forward to bringing you Season 5, and we start by sailing from Spain to Greece, then head north through Albania, Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Montenegro, Croatia, Slovenia, and much, much more. And after that, more USA and a ton of episodes from South America. Basically, we only just started. Thank you so much for staying with me and helping me spread the word about the Radio Vagabond. You're the best. My name's Palle Beau. See ya.